In today's video, I'll be doing a breakdown on episode 6, Light Angels Put in Hell by God, of Interview with a Vampire. So I'm very excited. So let's just dive right into it. So at the beginning, we see Louis recovering from what happened in episode 5. Now, this breakdown will contain spoilers. Okay, this is an alert. This is a warning for you. I will be talking about things that have already happened. This is a spoiler review, and breakdown. So just letting you guys know. So in the beginning of episode 6, we see Louis. He's recovering after he has experienced this pain, this trauma, something so horrible happened to him to where he got beat down so bad. And after Lestat beats him down in episode 5, he leaves, right? And while he's gone, Louis is recovering. And Claudia is there helping him to recover. So we see that after Louis starts to recover, more and more we start to see more of Lestat, and Lestat is bringing them gifts. He is trying to mend things. He is trying to bring the family back together, but Louis and Claudia are just not having it. They don't really care. They are ignoring him. Um, Louis won't speak to him at all, but Claudia is saying little words here and there, and Louis describes to us in his point of view that the gifts just keep coming, so like, even though they're not taking the gifts, or they're not receiving the gifts, or they're ignoring Lestat just keeps bringing gifts after gifts after gift. And Louis explains it in a way where he says it's relentless determination. So it's, I will not stop. And naturally, when something keeps happening, I think it's easy to say, like, oh, well, um, that doesn't mean anything. Louis got beat so bad. But over time, when something keeps happening over and over again, naturally, people do give into it. And even though 6 years is not a long time in vampire years, you know, he didn't stop. He just kept doing. And Louis even explains that they burnt more gifts than bodies. So it was probably incredibly frustrating for Louis. I don't know if it was for Claudia, but maybe for Louis, because he's trying to move on with his life, but this guy just keeps sending him gifts. So eventually, Lestat sends him the right gifts, and it is a beautiful song titled "Come to Me." And for those of you who don't know, in episode 1, that is something, I believe it was episode 1, that Lestat said to Louis before he turned him, "Come to me, come to me, come to me." So Lestat has two different versions of this. He has the version where you have his lover Antoinette singing it, and then he has a version of his own where he's singing it. But he sent Louis the one where his lover is singing it, and Louis was not happy by that. And it really just basically, how when you have something like that, you're kind of like, can you imagine like trying to chip away at something and to get a response, and eventually you crack it open, and then it's like, that's kind of, to me, what the gifts represents. Like, I'm just gonna keep on giving it until it's like a dam, like, I'm gonna keep on, I'm gonna keep on, trying to pry this thing until it opens. It's like a overflowing of water, right? If you get too much water, eventually the grass will break. So it's like, to me, that is what the gifts represent. I'm gonna keep on until eventually it gets to him. And Lestat was right. He probably was not expecting it, but Louis travels all the way to Mississippi to meet up with Lestat, and he's with Antoinette. He tells Antoinette, you know, to leave out, and Antoinette looks for Lestat to, defend her, and Lestat does not defend her. She's like, this is my house. And of course, Lestat does not care. Now, please note something that I forgot to mention earlier, that during the time where the 6 years where Louis and Claudia was pretty much staying in, I'm sorry, where Lestat was pretty much begging Louis and Claudia to be a part of their lives again, Louis and Claudia was staying in Lestat house. That's very important to note because it's going to come back later. But as the episode presumes, we get kind of towards the middle of the episode. Um, Before they completely let Lestat back in their lives, they begin to lay down some rules, and one of their rules is to kill Antoinette. And he's hesitant about that. And also another rule was that Claudia was no longer the sister in the family. And to me, this was very interesting because Lestat did something that I wasn't expecting him to do. Um, he he goes back and he says, you know, um, he kind of pushes back on it. He's like, you want to change, you can't, I'm your auntie and your cousin, I'm this and that. He did not like that. And at first I did not catch it. At first I knew that there was something that wasn't connecting, so I kept watching it over and over again. And then I realized that Claudia and did say, I am not your child, I'll be your companion, I will be your sister. And we all know in episode 1, what did Lestat ask Louis? He said, I want you to be my companion. So as someone who does not like Lestat, as someone who is not obviously in Lestat mind is a threat, is someone he doesn't get along with, and someone that he never really wanted in the first place, it's like she has upgraded. She has moved up in Louis' life. And this is why Lestat pushes back on it. And I did not notice that at first. But that's absolutely the case, I believe. So after the ground rules are set, things are kind of, they're trying, the family dynamic is trying, it's not really working. Louis is back to killing people to try to make the family feel like they're one, to feel like they're family again. It's just a struggle. And then Claudia continues to provoke Lestat, just as Lestat provoked her about her first love. There's another parallel. There's a lot of parallels within this series. We seen in episode 5 where Lestat was provoking Claudia about her first love, and then we see Claudia doing the same. And I also think that Claudia and Lestat is a lot more alike than what we give them credit for, at least from what I've seen of the videos that I've already watched, and the comments and the reviews and the forums that I've already watched. I think they are more alike than what we think, but that could be another discussion. So as we move on, we see that Louis and Lestat, they're trying to make it work, but Claudia is kind of like this thing of like, I'm not convinced that this man has changed, and she's not happy. So um, Louis Lestat ends up going hunting, and as he goes hunting, he goes back to Antoinette, and so is letting Louis and Claudia ends up falling behind him. They realize that he did not kill Antoinette like he said he would in the rules, right? So right then and there, it's already showing his lack of trust. Like, I trusted you to kill her. You brought me a finger. He brought her finger back, but you did not kill her. So Louis sees it and he becomes numb. And he talks about that from his point of view. And he's like, I feel disassociated. I feel numb. And he also says that tells Claudia that he doesn't that Lestat doesn't love Antoinette. He says that if he knew that I would love him as he is, he would probably kill her now. So we see a little bit of this power that I talked about in my previous review on episode 5, where I say I was frustrated with Louis' character, because he does have power over Lestat, but they're not really using that or showing that, and Louis is not really portraying that, and I'm a little frustrated. I don't think that it takes away from the storyline. I don't think that it makes the show worse or better. That's just, my own little personal take, my own personal frustration. I don't think that other people are necessarily sharing this same frustration. I think this is more me and me loving Louis as a character, and I'm a little frustrated, but I'm happy that they're showing us that Louis does get it, that Louis knows Lestat, that he knows his behavior, and he calls it out immediately and say, hey, he did this on purpose. He wanted us to see him with Antoinette. But I do think that Louis misses the whole point, as we see Lestat stir the conversation between him and Antoinette, and he talks about the reason why he needs Antoinette, in which we know that he did that on purpose. And also, you know, towards the end, uh, Antoinette tells not Louis, Antoinette tells Lestat, I love you, and then Lestat tells her that he loves her. And of course, I don't believe that Lestat loves her. I'm like Louis, I don't believe that he loves her, but he says it. And I also think that Louis missed that. I think that he did not make the connection, at least from what they're showing in the show, that, you know, Lestat is literally just trying to let him know that, hey, she's telling me that she loves me, and I'm telling her that I love her. I don't get that from you, you know? And from my understanding, and I could be wrong about this, and let me know in the comments, guys, but I have not seen Louis tell Lestat that he loved him. So, and even in this episode, when Lestat tells Louis that he loves him, Louis does not say it back. So there's, Sam, there's this interview where the actor, Sam Reed, he kind of gives us an insight of the mind of his character. And he says that when it comes to Lestat's humanity, it's not necessarily what he says, but more so what he does. And I don't think that that necessarily means directly, but indirectly. So he's indirectly telling Louis that, hey, I'm telling her that I love her. She told me that she loves me, and I don't get this from you. So that's an interesting twist. So Claudia's had enough, and she's like, I'm about to leave. I'm gone. I'm not staying here. So, after the whole thing with Antoinette, with between Lestat and Antoinette finding out that he's still seeing her and he did not kill her, Claudia has enough. She doesn't like him, and she doesn't want to be with him, and she doesn't want to be around Lestat. She's just over it. She wants Louis to come, but Louis does not come. So she leaves and she goes on a train, and then Lestat ends up going back and taking her from the train. And he says, and there's another parallel in which Lestat is very manipulative and very cunning. And this parallel is the dog in Claudia, which is very interesting because remember, Claudia called Lestat a dog in the episode. So he says, back into your cage, sweetheart. And we know that he wasn't just talking about the dog, but he was talking about Claudia. So he's telling Claudia, you're not able to leave. Louis is depressed. He's even worse than when you left the first time, and you're not leaving. So he literally forces this girl to come back home, y'all. Like he's crazy. And so he forces her to come back home. She's broken and in tears. And we see that they're back, into this dynamic again, and Lestat is trying to force something to work that's not working. But what's so interesting about him saying back into your case, sweetheart, is that to the dog, it didn't just open up my mind to him making a parallel between the dog and Claudia, but also the fact that Louis and Claudia was never free. This entire time they were staying in Lestat's house, and this entire time they were never free. Just because he wasn't physically there doesn't mean that they were able to just leave at any time, which is absolutely bonkers to me because, it's kind of like if you had an animal, like let's say you had a wild animal, but you had like a what do you call those things, like a national park, and let's say that the animal was wild and you couldn't talk to them, you couldn't, pet them or whatever, but when you would go outside, you would still see them there. You know what I'm saying? Like they're still locked into your park or your whatever. They're still there. They can't leave. It's like the same thing. Like it blew my mind when I understood, and I was like, "Whoa, that's crazy!" Like this entire time for 6 years, they've been staying in this man's house, thinking that they were free of him, and they never was. So it's interesting. This show has so many layers, so many parallels, so many things that I could even go on about, but I'm not going to. To me, I think it's too long. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think. Give your take. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think that I'm right on some points? Do you think I'm wrong? Let me know. I appreciate you guys for watching. Bye.